Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one. And in today's video, I'm going to give you an October homeschool update. So let's just jump right in and get started. So in my last update that I think came out sometime in September, I was talking about how we may move to a more traditional homeschool schedule. I had mentioned he being my son, wanted something more of like a regular middle school where everything is separated. He wanted to try it out. And let me just go ahead and tell you that was a huge flop. That is just not for us. I know it works for so many families to separate your subjects, to just go through your day and have blocks of time, but that does not work for us. And I know he even said, if I wanted to spend all day doing school, I'd just go to public school. So it was taking us forever. Our days seem so long and it just seems so pointless to separate everything out when we can just have everything neatly wrapped up into a unit study. So we ditched that middle school schedule and we went back to what worked. What works for us are unit studies where we just add our math in. That is what works for us. That's where the learning takes place. So for us, that's our update on our schedule. Back to our unit studies. Now let's talk about math. So we're in the Learn Math Fast. That's what we've been using. We've already completed 2 books. This is the 3rd book where there's pre-algebra. And my son understands like solving for X. He gets that. I mean, anytime you're finding an unknown, you even do that when you're little. He understands solving for X. But they threw a wrench in it and they started putting fractions in there. And that's kind of been his weak point. Fractions are hard for him. Converting them, he like kind of gets it, but kind of doesn't. And so before I went any further in here, we decided to do some backtracking. Now, it does say if you're having trouble with fractions, you can go back and do volume 2. I did not want to go back and repeat volume 2. Doing the same thing again, I don't think really helps anybody. Maybe coming from a different approach, having someone else teach it, that usually helps. So what I did is I went to the Good and the Beautiful because their Simply Good and Beautiful math is wonderful. I hate that it only goes through level 6 because I think it is a great program. And the fact that it is free and you can download it makes it 100 times better. So I actually have level 4, level 5, and level 6 on my computer. And so I just pulled all of those up and I went through every lesson to see if there's anything I could pull that would help him. And there were some. I know I pulled some from Math 4 and some from Math 5 first about reducing fractions, adding and subtracting fractions when they have they don't have a common denominator. Converting mixed numbers to improper fractions, that was holding him up a lot, having to go between the 2. And so I was able to just print what we needed, not the whole Simply Good and Beautiful math, not changing math curriculums, but just giving him something else to kind of reinforce and solidify how to work with fractions. So we worked on that for about a week, just going over, this is how you find a common denominator. Letting him, scan the QR code and watch the video of someone else teaching it. I think that helped tremendously. And just having a little bit more practice really helped him. So if you come to a bump in your curriculum, don't think that you have to throw the curriculum out. Just find some reinforcements, find some videos, find some hands-on activities, print something from the Good and the Beautiful. Whatever works. You don't have to go to the next lesson if your kid isn't ready. So we worked on that for a little while, and just to make sure that he really does understand how to solve for X with like negative numbers and with fractions and all those kind of things before we go into solving for Y, which is next, I went to, I don't want to see a blank page, I went to level 6 of the Simply Good and Beautiful math, and I found about 4 lessons that'll just quickly go over what we've already learned before we go any further into here. So this is just a little bit of review before we go further. So that's kind of our update. This is working absolutely fine, but I had to call in some reinforcements just to solidify some things. So that's our update for math. Now, what units have we completed this year? Well, we just finished in the steps of the Titanic from Campfire Curriculums. If you have ever loved the Titanic or found it interesting, or if your kids love it, or even if you don't think it's very interesting, you need to do this unit. It was amazing, packed full of tons of information I never ever knew about the Titanic. It's amazing. I have a flip through on my channel so you can see what's on the inside of it. But we had so much fun. I'm going to do a review of it so I can share what we read, some activities that we did. We really enjoyed this unit. You need to go check it out. So we finished this up. So what are we doing? Like, what is next for this month? And so what I decided to do, because Titanic did carry over into October, I just have just a little bit of time left in October to do something Halloween themed. Now, we have never, ever done a Halloween unit, but I did see this on Instagram. This is called All Things Spooky. And I thought that looked really interesting. And I was like, you know what? That sounds fun. I got it as a pre-order. And I was like, let's just try it out. So if you like unit studies, you're going to like this. But I will say, if you're used to doing Gather Round or Campfire, and you're used to having information to read to your child and then having your child do something, that's not what you're going to find in here. To me, this is more like a bare bones skeleton. Like, if you're just like planning, like, here's you a place to get started, and then you go from there. If you want to see a flip through of this, Ashley over at Gathered and Grounded, I think that's her new channel name, she does a flip through of this so you can see. I didn't print the whole thing because we just don't have the whole month of October to do it. I just printed some of the things I thought my son would like. So I'll show you a little bit. So this is like the history of Halloween. It tells you what to read, some discussion questions, and then there is some art where you can make soul cakes. So there are like recipes and crafts in the back, but my son is very picky and I knew he wouldn't eat those things. And he's not super like into doing crafts, so I didn't print those. I'll show you what we're going to do instead. But anyway, it has like a little activity like this. You do have a QR code because you're going to watch like the history of Halloween animation. And then here is like the newspaper article that you're reading. So that's there. She has a book list of books that she recommends for the younger students and for the older kids. My son is 14, so of course we're going to do something that's a little bit older. But it just gives you different activities. The great thing about a lot of these is you really wouldn't have to use them at Halloween. They're really just, they just have this spookiness about them, like the Salem Witch Trials and Edgar Allan Poe and R.L. Stein. They're not necessarily Halloween, so you could use this really anytime. But what I did is just went through and picked the things that we haven't covered. We've already covered the Salem Witch Trials, so we're going to do Chernobyl's nuclear nightmare. It came with some things to do here, and then it has this map, and then it also had some images, and I'll show you what I made to go with it. And then we're going to cover the Black Death because that's interesting, and it has like art and handiwork. You know, she says, you know, good notebook about it, keep a main lesson book. There is a newspaper article about the Black Death. And then there was also a game that goes with that you can print, the Black Plague activity. So this is what we're going to be working on for the rest of October. We're not starting a new unit. We're just going to do this. We have a read aloud that goes with it. It's called the Halloween Tree. And then we have, well, this is it right here, the Halloween Tree. And then we're going to be doing What Was the Plague? I love this cover. I just think it's so interesting. What Was the Plague? And then we're going to do Who Was Edgar Allan Poe? These are our two like books that we're getting our information from. But if you get this unit, she has a page that has all the books that she recommends. I was able to find the Chernobyl, whatever it is. I was able to find that book online for free. And then the monstrous book that you need, you can find it on Epic. And this is really neat. These things in the back, it covers Frankenstein, Dracula, zombies, and werewolves. And what is so neat is like, okay, so for the Frankenstein, it gives you kind of the backstory of Frankenstein. It talks about Mary Shelley, but then it also talks about how electricity would not make someone come to life like it did in the story. So it's got a lot of science in it, so I'm not worried about covering science. And then when it talks about vampires, it talks about what to do if you're losing blood. It talks about blood types. It talks about If you were a vampire, where would be the best place to bite? Would you want to bite on a vein or right here in the neck? And it talks about where you get the most blood. So it's scientific, but also fun at the same time. And I'll show you, let me show you what I made for my son. So we love to notebook and things like that. And I love for him to have a place to write things down. So in this flex binder here, if you haven't discovered these are great. I'll link one of them below. What I like about them is they just like fold under like a notebook. So what I did is I went into Canva and I made some sheets for my son to have a place to notebook on. So when we do the history of Halloween, he has a place to draw and write. When we talk about Chernobyl, he has a place to write, and I just put some pictures down there at the bottom. And then I made us up some pages for the Black Death. So as we're working through what was the plague, he has a place to come and notebook. So this was just easily done in Canva. So you could go make your kids a place to journal and write. And then, you know, sometimes it's really specific what I ask him to do. And then sometimes it's like, what do you remember about chapter 4? And he just has a little place to write. And then here is to tell me about the plague doctor and how their mask protected them. So these are just little things I created using Canva. I also am going to get him to create a comic using his information he knows about the plague, make a comic about it. And this whole little template here is on Canva. And then when we talk about Edgar Allan Poe, I want him to write a short story. So we're going to talk about how, you know, he knows how to write a story. That's one of his favorite things to do is write stories. But talking about how to write a scary or spooky story. So I printed him some writing paper. We're also going to work on writing a spooky poem when we talk about Edgar Allan Poe. I do want us to read The Raven. I want us to watch The Telltale Heart, like those kind of things. We are going to talk about New Orleans or New Orleans, however you say it, because there's a whole write-up about that. And let's see what else I put in here. I made these last week, so I've already forgotten. All right, so when we talk about Frankenstein, this is just a place for him to write and draw. And then I made him one for vampires. And so this just talks about, you know, where would the nice vampire bite and why, where would the evil vampire bite and why. It talks about in the book. If you read Monstrous, it covers this stuff. And then like how to survive a vampire attack. You know, how do you stop blood loss if that's happening? Not that you're going to get attacked by a vampire, but you could be in a situation where you lose blood, you know? And then you have zombies. And the zombie one was interesting because it did talk about like the parts of the brain that would not be active in a zombie's brain. And then she has a really fun game. It's like you shoot Nerf bullets at the zombies. I thought that would be fun. That's just a way to kind of get us up and moving. I thought that would be a lot of fun. Everybody likes to shoot Nerf guns. And then like for the werewolves, we're just going to do some art. So he's going to make like a night scene with the wolf silhouette. But that's what I've made for him. Like I said, I just made that in Canva. That was easy to put together. And it was really just to give him a place. If you do this, you don't have to make any sheets. Like you could give him a blank notebook. You could do the crafts that she has listed. You could do the recipes. I just know what my son likes. And so that's why I made the sheets. And then I made me some daily plans because I cannot just blindly go into things. I can't just like open this up and be like, oh, okay, today we're going to read about this. I can't do that. That's just not me. So I made us an all things spooky. Each little splotch is a different day and the things I would like to get accomplished in the day. I did not put dates on them. That stresses me out to think that I have to do a certain thing a certain day. So they're just labeled like day 1, day 2, day 3. And it just kind of outlines what part of the unit study I would like to get through that day, how much I want to read out of the read aloud, how much I want to read out of the Who Was book, and that kind of thing. So this is what we're doing for the month of October. So I do think that is everything. After that, I'm really not sure if we're going to do the new Campfire unit that I just shared, the Through the Eyes of a Zoologist. That will more than likely be the one my son picks. I really want us to get to Gather Around Ancient Civilizations. I want to do that before Christmas. So hopefully we can fit in those two things. You'll just have to stay tuned. Let me know how your October's going. Have you had to tweak or change anything, or is everything just running super smooth? Are you using a really interesting Halloween unit? Do you have something in mind for Thanksgiving? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.